Hi there! Welcome to our first video lesson. The aim of this lesson is to give a proper definition of credit risk. Why do we need it? I'm pretty sure that every one of you has his or her own definition of credit risk. And this is the point. We need to agree on one single definition. One definition that we can share when we approach credit risk, when we model credit risk. And I'm also sure that for you, credit risk is not just a synonym of default risk, because we know that this is naive. Credit risk is made up of many different sub-risks. How many? 2, 3, 10? We will see that. We will see that these sub-risks are, in reality, the true objects we approach and we model. That credit risk as a whole is a combination of different aspects. Credit risk is one of the main risks under the Basel framework, and it's time for us to define it. Okay, let's go. Citing the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, credit risk is most simply defined as the potential that a bank borrower or counterparty will fail to meet its obligations in accordance with agreed terms. And they also add that the effective management of credit risk is a critical component of a comprehensive approach to risk management and essential to the long-term success of any banking organization. Having this very general definition in mind, let's try to be a little more specific. In the very nice book of McNeil and Friends, we can read, "Credit risk is the risk of a loss arising from the failure of a counterparty to honor its contractual obligations. This subsumes both default risk and downgrade risk." Very nice. We are better specifying what credit risk is for us. Let's see in further detail. Default risk is rather simple from a conceptual point of view. It is the risk connected with the default of the counterparty, which may declare bankruptcy or go into liquidation, and so on. Associated to default risk, we have the so-called probability of default, and the typical loss is equal to the product of the exposure at default and the loss given default. Downgrade risk, more correctly known as migration risk, is the risk related to a deterioration in the counterparty's creditworthiness. The term downgrade risk is mostly used for counterparties with external credit ratings issued by some rating agency. In migration risk, we deal with the possibility for the counterparty to migrate from one risk class to another, a worse one typically. The worse the new class, the larger the reduction in the value of the credit exposure. But is this really enough? No, the answer is no. Credit risk is also made up of other sub-risks. In particular, spread risk and recovery risk are very important. Spread risk is the risk associated with a rise in the spreads required by the market for borrowers. If risk aversion increases on the market, the spread associated to a given probability of default may increase. These will decrease the asset value of the relative securities, without an explicit reduction of the issuer's credit rating. Recovery risk is the risk that the recovery rate actually recorded after the liquidation of the insolvent counterparty's assets will be smaller than the original estimate. We will see that these may happen because of our overestimation of the actual liquidation value, or because of a recovery process taking more time than what was expected. Recovery risk is strictly connected, as we will see, to the estimation of the loss given default. Please notice that all the previous sub-risks are strictly interconnected, and in the real world, they affect one another. So, just to summarize, for us, credit risk is essentially made up of 4 different components, 4 different sub-risks: default risk, migration risk, spread risk, and last but not least, recovery risk. I said essentially because we could continue our list of sub-risks constituting credit risk, and this is cacophony, by introducing substitution risk and country risk. Now, substitution risk is related to OTC derivatives when our counterparty becomes insolvent before the maturity of the contract, and this requires us to replace it on the market at new market conditions, potentially generating losses. Country risk is the risk related to a counterparty that is a non-resident counterparty, a counterparty in another country, and it is the risk related to the impossibility of our counterparty to meet its obligations because of events of political and legislative nature. We will not cover these 2 sub-risks in detail. Naturally, if you are interested, you can ask questions on the course forum. I will try to answer via post or even with an extra video if a lot of you are really interested in this topic. But I also suggest you to start thinking about the topics you would like to discuss together in the last week of the course, week 6. Because in that week, a part of the course will be decided by you, by your interests. So if you are interested in country risk, just ask. Okay, this was our first video lesson together. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon online in the next class. Goodbye, and thank you.